Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Matt. Thanks for stopping by. Now I've got a new pattern for you today. This is one I've never tied for the channel, and it's called a zonker. Now the original zonker was created by Dan Byford from Steamboat Springs, Colorado in 1975. And it's been a pretty popular pattern since. It's gone through all kinds of variations. But what exactly does a zonker mean? Well, it's just a fly that's tied with fur strips. This is a rabbit, so this is one rabbit hide dyed olive and cut into zonker strips. And this is probably 25 strips, and each one of these you can usually tie 2, maybe 3 flies. So this is 50 or 60 flies right here. That's why I've had this thing for 3 years and, haven't really made much of a dent in it. So if you don't need this many, you can also buy small packs. And this is what I get right here. This is a Squirrel Zonker pack, and it's probably got 5 or 6 strips in this one. So this is probably 10 or 12 flies. And if I'm looking to tie them in a bunch of colors, I'll get the small packs. And I'll either do it in squirrel or rabbit, depending on what size of the fly you're tying. And most people tie these patterns to imitate, a leech or a bait fish, maybe a sculpin. And there's all kinds of named flies based on this type pattern. I think the bunny leech or the Slumpbuster is pretty much the same as the one I'm tying today, but I don't think there's a need to get into these really fancy names. I just call it a Squirrel Zonker, or if I'm tying it bigger, maybe a Rabbit Zonker. But it's a really easy pattern to tie. You put the strip on Matuka style, and I think it's a lot easier than doing a featherwing Matuka. And it can be a super effective pattern. It's really fun to tie. I hope you'll give it a shot. So there's one in the vise, a crawdad orange Squirrel Zonker. Some call it a Slumpbuster, very similar. Now I'm tying this on a size 6. It's a streamer hook, but it's only a 2X long, so it's not really long. And I've got a size small bead on it. It's a cone bead. If you've only got a round bead, that's fine. I'm going to use some big, thick wire wrap. This is 020, and I'm going to put it down for a good part of the body right here. So remember, this bead doesn't add a ton of weight to it. Now for my thread, I'm using black. You could certainly flash it up, use a little bit of different color if you want, but mostly the thread is not going to be seen. It's going to be behind that bead. So put it down behind your weight and take a few wraps up here just to help secure it. Okay, now that you got a base down to the start of the bend, let's go ahead and catch in our rib. And the rib on this one, it's a size brassy is what I'm using. I think it works well. You can use any color you want. This will be seen, but it's not, a big component of it. It's really just to hold the zonker strip in. So go ahead and catch that in. Right there is fine. Now we do want an underbody, and there's a lot of things you can do with an underbody. A lot of people will put flash on it or just some fur dubbing. I'm tying it in with acrylic yarn. It's cheap and it's easy, and I've got it in a lot of colors. So I'm going to tie it in right behind that weight. That will help me just smooth out the underbody between the weight and the back of the hook. Now I'm going to take my thread back up, not all the way behind the bead, but just a little bit in front of it. Then I'll just wrap this all the way up. Try to keep it even. Okay, and when I get back up here, I'm going to go ahead and catch this off with 2 or 3 tight wraps before I snip this yarn. Okay, a couple of other wraps just to get that trapped down. Now the fun part, this Squirrel Zonker strip. Now this is a crawdad orange, but you can get this in natural. It's a pine squirrel. You can get it in natural, you can get it dyed in all kinds of colors. But what you want to do is just take it a little bit off the front, just pluck it out and get you a tie-in point right up here. And then we're going to catch it in, not necessarily right up in the eye, because we're going to wrap some a little bit more of this in a minute for the front hackle like. We're actually going to use the same squirrel for a kind of a hackle. So what you want to do next, we're going to catch this in with the wire. And I'm going to counter wrap it, so take my wire up under and then find out where it's coming on top. So you see where it's about to come up right there. Then try to open this up, just right there where you're going to bring that over, and then wrap it over. And the goal here is to keep this squirrel strip on top of the fly. Don't let it spin around. So we're going to do the same thing, just a little bit forward of that. And on this size 6, I'll probably get 4, maybe 5 wraps up. Okay, when you get it up front, just maybe a couple of extra wraps. Get you some room to tie off this wire rib. And 3 or 4 good wraps right here should do before you have to spin this off, or you can reach in there and snip it. Now here's where you have a decision to make. How long do you want this thing? I think the longer it is, kind of the better it looks, but at the same time it's harder to fish and it will start wrapping around, so you probably don't want it really any longer than a body length. And keep in mind that where you cut it, if I cut it right there, it's going to be a little bit longer because of the hair sticks out. So maybe let's go about right here and see what that does for us. Okay, I think that's going to be a long enough tail right there. Now what you want to do, that piece you just cut off, strip a few of the hairs off the front of it, get another tie-in point, and this one, I'm going to do a little bit more. This one, I am going to kind of jam it up in there in the bead and just get, 3 or 4 or 5 good tight wraps right here. And take your thread right back behind the bead. And we're going to try and put 2 wraps of this. So with the skin side toward the hook, there's 1. Now I've seen people tie it with 3 wraps as well, but it starts to really get pretty buggy after about that. So that's 2 full wraps right there. I think that is certainly plenty enough hair on this. So I'm going to catch this off on this side right here. 2 pretty tight wraps. Maybe let's do 1 more. And now take your thick scissors, strong scissors, get right up in there, up under that bead, as close to it as you can get. And got a little bit of fluff coming off, but let's go ahead and put some extra wraps back behind this bead and on top of this squirrel, just to really get it locked in. Okay, now what you can do to finish this off, you can put some super glue on your thread and then do a whip finish, but that can get a little bit messy, so what I'll do, I'll just put 2 whip finishes. And you'll want to be careful, make sure your wraps do not go along the front of that bead or they will slide down to the eye and you'll just have a little bit of a mess. So take your time, do maybe 2 whip finishes, and then you can skip the head cement. And I'll just reach in here with my scissors and poke until my thread breaks. So there you go, a Slumpbuster or Squirrel Zonker. This is a crawdad orange Squirrel Zonker. Pretty fun tie, pretty easy to tie, and can be a very effective pattern. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate y'all watching. You take care, and we'll see you next time.